Welcome, welcome. Is Donald Trump planning a Trump recession? Yeah, I did not misspell the title or the thumbnail. I put together Trump and recession and called it the Trump recession. And you might ask yourself, why would Donald Trump be motivated to cause a recession? After all, we all know that the goal of any president is to get reelected. That's statistically what tends to happen after all. Everybody tends to know of the sitting president much more. So why wouldn't it happen? Well, interestingly, today I'm going to go through this scenario that I've been reading about, but it's sort of been subtly buried in sort of discussion. I usually don't like to talk anything even related to politics here, but the purpose of this video is to show you there might be some opportunities to make some money and some investment decisions based off of the drama that I think might unfold. And the interesting thing is we can watch this unfold and we can see if we're right or wrong. So we'll see what happens. Let's get right into it. So let's start with some of the facts. First things first, we know that Donald Trump wants a strong economy. Every president wants a strong economy. We'll get that out of the way right away. We also know that Trump wants to appear tough on China because his base demands him to be tough on China. So we know these two things should go together, but right now they're at odds. Having a strong economy, but being tough on China, they're at opposite ends. You know, the tougher you are on China, the weaker the economy is and the more shaken consumer confidence is, which keep in mind, 70% of our economy is consumers. Consumers create our economy. So if businesses slow down because consumerism slows down, the economy slows down, and that's not good. But so we know a few facts. We know he wants to be tough on China. We know he wants a strong economy. And we know he wants to be reelected. We also know this, though. We know that Trump wants the Federal Reserve to stimulate the economy, to sort of help it along while he's being tough on China. To sort of offset him being tough on China, let's have the Fed kind of prop up the markets a little bit, right? That solves everything. But the Fed is doing what they usually do. They sit on the side and they look and go, let's see what the market does. The Fed does, and I believe them when they say this. The Fed says we won't be influenced by politics, and we won't succumb to politics in our Federal Reserve decision making, in our monetary policy. And I believe them. I do believe that. However, there's an interesting thing that could happen here. Watch this. On August 23rd, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said, we will do whatever we need to do to make sure the expansion continues, to make sure growth continues. At the same time, they're saying they're not going to be politicized by Donald Trump. And at the very same time, Donald Trump says, come on, hurry up and stimulate the economy already. So we have these positions where Trump wants the Fed to do stuff. The Fed says, we're just going to wait and see kind of what happens. And so then you have to ask yourself, oh, this is actually interesting. Run with this example for a second. Trump is a witty business person. He wants to be in control. In theory, he is the one who has control over this China negotiation, right? He could probably come up with a deal with China and make something happen. But being tough on China is politically strong right now. But Trump doesn't have control over the Fed. Fed says we won't be politicized, we won't be bullied into action. But the Fed does say they'll respond if the economy slows down. Well, that's where we enter, that's where we enter what I'm calling the Trump recession. And I can't, okay, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't somewhat at least inspired by Trumper tantrum, but I just thought that's fun. It's not trying to be political. I'm not going to give any kind of political opinions here. I just love some of these phrases. But anyway, let's look at this. What happens every time Donald Trump talks about being tougher on China or implying that tariffs are going to be, increased or strengthened? The market falls. And you have to ask yourself also, keep this in the back of your mind, how can you make money from this? That's always my goal, right? We always talk about Meet Kevin Report. This is news that makes you money. So then you wonder, well, wait a minute. If Trump has the potential to talk about China and talk about violently increasing tariffs or talk about this particularly right here, take a peek at this, us being better off without China and that companies are now ordered to stop doing business essentially with China, look for alternatives to China. If Trump can do this and the market reacts by falling over 600 points, what is the natural consequence of that? The Fed isn't looking at Trump's tweets, but the Fed looks at the market. So if Donald Trump can talk about being tougher on China and going to what's called this level of brinksmanship, then in theory, Donald Trump could manipulate the actions of the Federal Reserve, tank the economy by rocking the boat of consumer confidence, by, going to the brink with China. Now the Fed is forced to respond to keep the economy propped up. It's maybe it's like dark thinking. Okay, maybe it's jaded. I'm just going through the scenario here. But watch this. When I think of these scenarios, because I'm all about perspective. When I thought about these scenarios, I thought to myself, okay, well, has this ever happened before? Has Donald Trump ever, done something like this before? And so then I did a little bit of research and I look and I go, okay, well, let's see. Take a look at this. This is an article from Fortune, weaponizing tariffs. And what's interesting here is, look at this. What has been new and potentially disturbing is Trump's apparent use of tariffs to indirectly manipulate interest rates. Look at this. A day after the Fed lowered interest rates on July 31st by a quarter, Trump wanted a larger cut, basically. I'm filling in a little bit here to speed it up. And then he immediately claimed that the country would back out of a trade agreement and said that in retaliation, the U.S. would put in a 10% tariff on another $300 billion of goods, which obviously led to this nearly 820-point drop we had in the Dow. It was actually like 800-point drop in the Dow we had a couple Mondays ago, which, by the way, if you follow me on Instagram, if you don't yet, follow me on Instagram. But I usually like to buy on red days. I talk about that in like the real estate investing course and using that towards your negotiation abilities. Talk about that in the real estate agent course as well. Buying deals when the market is red. It's my favorite day to buy stuff. And so I did on that 800-point drop day. But it's interesting because now we look and we go, wait a minute. So Trump has weaponized this China debate before. And now let's do a little bit of game theory here for a second. And I'm going to answer questions in just a second. But let's do a little game theory experiment for a moment. If Trump is tough on China, that increases the likelihood of people wanting to vote for him within his base. But at the same time, Trump being tough on China means the economy gets hurt. But not if the economy gets hurt enough through that sort of Trump recession, where the Fed comes in over the next 3 Federal Reserve meetings and props the economy back up. Now, Trump could, in theory, have what he wants. He could have best of both. Lower interest rates, because the Fed moves to lower interest rates, prints money, easier monetary policy, props the economy up. Now, in theory, Trump could step back even a little bit from China trade, strike a deal with China, and go into the November 2020 election with a deal on China and lower interest rates. Which, now this would be total speculation, but the economy will boom if that happens. Because remember how we talked about this, how much of our economy is based on consumer confidence. And right now, these are the kind of articles we're seeing. We're seeing stuff like this. UF tariffs on China could cost American households $1,000 per year. People don't have an extra $1,000. People barely have the $264 to buy my real estate investing course. But no, in seriousness, this is fascinating, because you look at this and you go, wow, the Trump recession could be a way to manipulate the economy, to cause the economy to decline in the short term, force the Federal Reserve's hand, then strike a deal with China. Boom, Trump has the best of both. Who's going to benefit from this? How are you going to make money from this? That's very important. Think about this. Who makes money anytime the market slows down? The people who make the most money on red days are usually wealthier people. People that are like, oh, it's a red day. I'm going to buy in the stock market. I'm going to go shopping for cheaper stocks. I'm going to go buy cheaper real estate. It's usually people that don't have a lot of money or don't have a lot of investments that get nervous. It's like that first time, and I remember this, it's that first time I put money into stocks. The very first stock I bought when I was 16 years old was Apple. And then I saw Apple stock go down and I'm like, oh my gosh, I made a big mistake. Oh my gosh, I just need to sell. I need to cut my losses. Like, I get it. That's a terrible feeling. So a lot of people won't be inclined to buy on these red days, except wealthier people, which statistically, at least, Republicans, not all of the base, obviously, but there are a lot of wealthy Republicans that might benefit from this. So, and we're going to go to questions here in a second, but this whole Trump recession could create the biggest wedge deals, the biggest opportunity to buy wedge deals in both stocks and real estate that our country has ever seen in the last 10 years. Let me explain that a little bit better. I like taking out my whiteboard for this. So picture this. If we see what happened last November again, or sorry, last October, last December, around that time, October to December, we see the same thing that happened last year, and we get this sort of volatility, we get this plummet in the stock market, comes back, shoots up, goes back down, and all of a sudden we're like, wow, year over year, we're like nowhere. But what did this opportunity create for people? The opportunity for people to jump in and buy stuff at a fat discount. Now, this is buying when the market is down, which is a type of wedge. I personally prefer the wedge in real estate, where no matter what the market is, doesn't matter if the market's up or down, you're constantly in every single market trying to buy below market value, and that becomes your wedge. So I don't know. I mean, like, call me a skeptic, and I think you all know on this channel, I'm all for sharing perspective. I'm not trying to be political. I'm not saying Trump is good. I'm not saying Trump is bad. I'm just simply trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle and go, holy crap. If I would be lying if I said, if I were president right now, that wouldn't be going through my mind. I mean, it totally makes sense. I could be the toughest president ever on trade, at the same time force the Fed to lower rates, which is what I want, then strike a deal before the election, game over. There's no chance of a Democrat coming into office if that happens. It's a fascinating sort of, in my opinion, like game theory point of view, and it's interesting. And it's already working, because after the last time, this happened, where Trump was upset that rates weren't dropped enough, in his opinion, look what the Fed is already saying. This is one of the Fed governors, and he says the global economy is slowing and there are powerful disinflationary pressures. They say the economy, in the U.S. economy, is in a good place right now, and they don't see a heightened recession risk. And that is actually why we see 2 Federal Reserve board members said, we don't want rate cuts. 2 of them said, we want more rate cuts. And the other people are like, let's just do the quarter-point rate cut. So we have this sort of like a little bit of both going on, right? We got some who want rate cuts, some who don't. Well, all it's going to take is more drama with China to push everything down. If you read the Federal Reserve minutes, the meeting minutes, if you listen to the speeches, what you consistently see is the Federal Reserve says, we are keeping an eye on the growing trade issue, because that's probably the biggest thing causing issues right now. And it's fascinating to me. It's absolutely fascinating. So, let's see what y'all think, and give me some comments here. But really, I look at this as I think to myself, this to me could be a big shopping opportunity. We talk about buying wedge deals in real estate. I would seriously be thinking about getting pre-approved. If you're not pre-approved yet, get pre-approved. I should have put my Apple Card here. Instead, I just put this stupid coffee mug here with my face on it. Somebody gave this to me as a gift. Don't think I make coffee mugs with my face on it for fun. But let's talk for a second. What about gold, right? A lot of people right now see gold as a safe haven. And I believe that gold will do well during the Trump recession. However, after we get through the Trump recession, as soon as that deal is struck with China and rates are lower, I think people are going to pull right back out of gold and throw their money into equities and real estate, that's stocks and real estate. Just my opinion. Make dating advice for noobs. No, and I'm not suggesting that we'll never see a recession again. I just don't think we're going to see a crazy, massive recession in the next, I've said it before, in the next, 3.5 to 4 years. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's my speculation right now, and I'm going to keep watching the data, but I'm not seeing a crazy recession over the next 3 or 4 years. However, I can totally see a Trump recession temporarily making the market full of anxiety to flip it around. It's fascinating for me. Thanks for the financial no. Okay, yeah. Remember what was that? Where do you remember how scared they were for a while? Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, fear does a lot, and so to me, it's an interesting take. It's a take that I'm really going to be tracking for investing, because you all know I'm a massive fan of investing. So it's something else. Yeah, I'm going to repost this. And yeah, I mean, folks, really think to yourself, this is what I would do. Let's come up with a game plan here. In all of your situations, I would ask yourself, okay, what are the possibilities? Possibility number one, Trump strikes a deal with China early. What happens if Trump strikes a deal with China early before the election, no matter what happens with the Fed? The economy is going to jump. The economy is going to be excited. Markets will go up. Real estate prices go up. Stocks will go up. I believe that will happen. If a deal is struck with China and all this drama goes away, we're all shopping for our iPhones again and things are looking good. That's one case, one scenario. If a deal does not happen with China, and this sort of brinksmanship continues, the Fed will probably prop up the markets, which again is good for stocks and real estate. So if we're only looking in the scope of what's going on with China and the Fed, investing right now seems like a really good play. If you believe there is some black swan that's going to come out and plummet the markets, well, then that's something else that you would have to think about and analyze. Okay, do I not want to be involved in the markets right now? I just don't see that. In fact, most people, if anything, they talk about less inflation and disinflation, yet there are a lot of really loud voices on YouTube that suggest that's it. The dollar is going to lose all its value. There's going to be hyperinflation and markets will crash and the world's going to end. I don't know. I don't see it. And I could be wrong. I just don't see it. So I think work hard, invest some money into the marketplaces, and I wouldn't be so worried, other than thinking, you know what, I'm going to keep shopping for opportunities, because I think this is a very real possibility. The Trump recession, in some way, it's kind of scary, but on another, side of the coin, it's kind of like, could be a really cool buying opportunity that I might want to take advantage of. So, hey, you know what? Again, not political, just my opinion. So, folks, there you have it. Thanks so much for watching, and follow me on Instagram. I'm going to go live on the real estate agent course very shortly here. And folks, until next time.